Alright guys, welcome back. I hope you've had a good tea break, and behind these curtains here is also some lunch, so that's something to look forward to in the next 60 minutes or so, right? So I'll be taking up roughly 45 to 50 minutes of your time today to show you in reality what the solution actually is, how the system looks, feels, works, and of course if you have any questions, feel free to stop me wherever you think you have a question, and we'll take that up as well. Alright, excellent. So if and when you do onboard ERPNext, when you come to work in the morning, this is the first page that you will see, right? This is your login screen like you would have in any other system. One of the things that clients ask us the most is that, is this secure, right? Can I restrict people from accessing or viewing certain things in the system, right? So it's absolutely secure. We can provide complete role-based access control throughout the system, right? To a very granular level as well. So within each document in the system, we can actually control what the user sees, what he can create, what he can delete, what he can cancel, and so on and so forth, right? So the way it is, the way it's set up, right, is in a way that I can go ahead, I can create a user. Within that user, you will see that there are multiple roles like so, right? Now these roles can be completely customized. We can create new roles for you. So if you have an organization where, you know, some people are in the procurement side, some are for the sales, some are for operations, so on and so forth. When they log in, they will only see those things in the system without having access to any other document or you know, any other function which they don't have access to. You can see that if I, for example, assign the role of a purchase manager, right? You will see all the different documents that they have access to, plus the level of access that we can control, right? So if you want to restrict them from creating any of these documents, it will just be check or uncheck. It's that simple, right? So we've tried to keep this system very easy to use for the end user as well, so that you don't need any kind of technical expertise if you want to, you know, onboard new users, give them roles, give them access to the system. It's very straightforward. All of this is covered under our training, right? Another very cool feature on it is, you would have noticed on the left-hand side, there is a list of different modules, right? Now this is one of the first systems in the world which has such a comprehensive list of features all on one single platform, right? So everything from your accounting function, your asset management, your buying or procurement, your CRM and sales, HR, payroll, manufacturing, project management, healthcare management, and there are a ton more modules that I can mention, but we'd fall short of time, right? So everything can be accessed from one single interface, and that is the key USP that we're trying to bring into organizations, especially that are using multiple systems, one for accounting, one for inventory tracking, and so on and so forth, right? So when you actually log in, you come into work, you log into the system, you will actually enter the home screen. And now this home screen is completely, again, customizable based on the kind of features that you will most regularly use as a user, right? So if I log in, I'm a finance guy, I would want to see only finance-related features on the home screen itself for quick access, right? If someone is from, let's say, management, then they would only want access to reports maybe, right? So you would only give them access, or we would only see reports right on the home screen. It's very personalized in the sense that if you feel a feature is not relevant to you, we need not clutter the system. We can just keep it targeted to what you would mainly use, right? So the learning curve in the system is cut down by half compared to other ERP systems, right? You can very easily navigate the system with no training required. All you need to do is simply come up into the search bar and search for whichever feature you want, right? You need not even type the entire name. For example, if I want to look for a purchase invoice, I can just type SEIN and it will give me a list of all the different features that have that, right? So it uses wildcards very dynamically in the search. So this search bar is actually called Awesome Bar. And I think that's more of a marketing thing, but it's actually pretty awesome because it's very flexible. And for those of you who are using certain enterprise level systems, I wouldn't take names, but those systems have very buggy search bars. I know that from experience, that when you search for something in there, it can be very difficult to actually get to that screen from the search bar, right? So this gets rid of that topic. Not only can the search bar be used to access documents and features, it can be also used to access transactions, right? So I can go ahead, let me just go and open a purchase invoice here for you. Oh, there's none. All right, I'll open it here. All right, so let's say this is a list of all my invoices, and I quickly want to access this particular invoice 001, right? So all I have to do is simply, when I log in, I know the document ID. I just simply type the document ID up here, hit the enter button, and this will actually show me all the different documents that has this particular keyword in. So the one I'm looking for is a purchase invoice. There you go, that's the purchase invoice that we're actually looking for, right? You can click it and it will directly link you in there. So it's very easy to navigate. It gets rid of the main pain point in moving into a new system, which is the change management or the training, right? Which we're trying to minimize by giving such easy to access features, right? Which require minimal kind of training, right? Another awesome feature that you would notice in this is the audit trail at the bottom, right? So any change made by any user on any field is tracked at a very granular level, right? So who created this document, when was it created, when it was edited, and what exactly was edited. So for example, the posting time was changed from 15-second to 20-second, and so on and so forth, right? So the audit trail is intense. You can get reports on every document, on every audit trail of what changes have happened in that document, right? So this will actually give you the peace of mind that any irregularities in the system can actually be tracked simply through reports. You need not go into any kind of database or anything like that like you would in a regular enterprise ERP. Right? Another great tool is the left side here, which is universal for all the documents, right? So imagine you are a procurement team, one of you is dealing with the invoicing bit, one of you is dealing with the payments bit. You can actually collaborate on the system. You can assign the documents to each other. You can add comments. You can maintain a complete trail of comments down here, right? So I can say please process payments, done. And once I actually post this comment, this will be reflected as a notification to the person, either via email, via SMS, via this little bell icon that we call as a system notification, right? So what Frappe has actually done is given us tools to build notifications, build approval workflows in a manner which is completely flexible, right? So we decide in terms of notifications, what the message should be, who it should go out to, what the channel or the mode of communication is. Is it by email, WhatsApp? So we support a bunch of different tools, including an inbuilt emailer system, right? So for those of you who are maybe on Outlook or Gmail, you need not toggle between, go in here, open your Gmail, then send the email out. No. If you have an email to send out relating to, for example, this purchase invoice, just come into this button, click new email, and from here you can use your native email address, whether on Gmail or Outlook, and you can send attachments, send emails, receive emails, and manage your entire communication through one single portal, right? So we aim to minimize the number of screens that you have to shift, or the number of softwares that you have to use, and we try to consolidate all of that into one single platform, right? There's a tagging feature down here. Right now, let's say there's a transaction which seems a little ambiguous, right? It may require some further auditing. So all I have to do is put in a hashtag here and write audit and enter. So as an auditor, when I simply come in here and in the search bar I type hashtag audit, it'll give me a list of all the documents that have that audit tag on it, right? So it makes internal control, internal compliance very easy in this way. So on a daily basis, you can come in, you can have a look at all your different tag documents, and you can verify whether the data is valid, whether it is correct and ready for posting, right? So other than this, of course, there are dashboards and all of that. These are just some of the features that I wanted to talk to you about before we actually get into the modules and get into the features that you can find within each module, right? So just take a quick pause. Any questions so far in this? All right, sounds good. Let's start off. As you already know, ERPNext is a complete unified ERP system with all the modules in one platform, plus they're all integrated with each other, right? So when you do a purchase, it will automatically post your journal entries. It'll choose the debit and the credit accounts and so on and so forth, right? Based on something that we call the default accounting system. So all throughout the system, there are different levels of defaulting, basically your ledger accounts, right? And based on the kind of transaction we're doing, the system will automatically pick and choose which ledger is meant to be affected by that transaction, right? So this will actually minimize a lot of the accounting data entry that you do on a daily basis, where the system will just do it itself, and as a user, all you have to do is validate whether that data is correct or whether that entry was posted correctly or not, right? So as part of accounts, I'll just come down here. We have a lot of features. I think 60 minutes is less to go through everything. But in a nutshell, the accounting module is your core module for tracking all your financial related data, right? So starting from the different reports we have, right? Of course, your general financial statements, all of those are covered very well in the system. They come with inbuilt graphics, charts, Excel downloadable content, PDF downloadable content, so you can very easily come in here, click the 3 buttons, and you can export it in any format that you like, that you feel comfortable working on, right? So once your accounting has been automated, you will actually notice a big difference in the time you take to close each monthly period, right? And the system or the tool is flexible enough to allow you to close periods based on the departments, right? So if you think your sales department for the month of February is reconciled, it's tallied, it's good to go, you can simply click on that particular month and you can choose which transaction is allowed to be posted or is closed, right? So once you close the transaction here, no more posting can happen, gives you complete control of your accounts. Right, so we can actually reduce your accounting period closure cycle monthly by almost 30 to 40% using these kind of automation features, right? So what you actually see here are the different documents which have an impact on your financials. And we choose and select which ones are closed, which one is open, based on which we would have a financial for that month, that year, that week, could be anything, right? All these documents or all the reports are generated in real time like they are normally with any other system. So that is at par. There's no need for any background jobs or background processes, nothing, no scheduled tasks. It all runs automatically in real time, right? Another couple of features which I've noticed in enterprise systems is the chart of accounts, right? So if you're working with certain ERP systems, you would notice that when you do the implementation, the chart of accounts is one of the first things that's frozen in the system because there are some limited number of segments you have to put in, right? And once those segments are put in, you can't actually increase those segments in other ERPs. So we've tried to get rid of that system where today if you're tracking maybe 5 segments and tomorrow you want to track 7 segments, without creating any future segment, you can simply come into the accounting dimension section here and you can go ahead and track segments on the go, right? So you want to track it by cost center and line of business and project and etc., etc. You can keep building the chart of accounts as you move along, right? It does not follow any flex cube concept or any concept which restricts you in terms of accounting. Tomorrow when your organization grows, there would be more granular level of reporting that you expect the system to do. So this is flexible enough to give you that granular level of reporting. For example, if you want a brand-wise profit and loss, maybe 1 year from your implementation, we can very easily go ahead, get that in the system, and now your reports will give you brand-wise or division-wise or department-wise, whatever it is that you choose to do, right? That's the kind of flexibility that the accounting module here tries to offer, along with the automated accounting system. A couple of other good features that you'd see here is the multi-company and multi-currency enablement that we have in the system, right? So you may have multiple entities, maybe in the same country, maybe in different geographies across the world. All of them can be catered for within the same system, and it forms a multi-company tree structure like so, right? So I can just go here, I can open the tree, and you can see these are all my companies. Within a group company, I can have multiple subsidiary companies, and within those subsidiary, I can have even more of a breakup, right? So there's no limit to how granular you can get. So as your organization scales from 1 or 2 legal entities into different geographies in the world, the system that you use will remain the same. You need not get a new system to cater for those kind of geographies as well, right? All right. Now, other than these basic or these kind of accounting packages, there's also complete budgeting tools in here as well, right? So you can actually create budgets, and you can control these budgets based on the level of security you want, right? So when I create a budget, for example, I can create it against a particular cost center, I can create it against the company, or I can create it against a project on a account level like so, right? And once I have established what the budget will be for each ledger or for each type of expense, up here I can actually choose the level of control I want to give, right? So whether we want the system to check this budget on the requisition level, on the order level, on the invoice level, is completely up to us. As soon as you enable it, it will give you 2 options. What to do if the budget will exceed the annual amount that we've put, and what the system should do if you've exceeded the monthly amount that we've put, right? So we actually give you flexibility where we have absolute control in terms of if the budget is exceeded, the system will completely stop the transaction. It will not let you submit it at all. There's advisory controls as well, where it'll give you a warning or a notification that this transaction is going to exceed your budget. Do you still want to go ahead with it? You know, so you have an option. And lastly, we have a tracking mechanism where it won't give you any warnings, it won't stop the transaction. It'll simply track the deviation or the variation between your actuals and your budgeted, which you can then go ahead and see in your budget variance report like so, right? So you have all your different accounts, you have the budgeted amounts, the actual amounts, which are of course coming from different transactions like your purchases and your journal entries and so on and so forth. And here you track the variance. You can track it in amounts, you can track it in percentages, right? Now you look at this screen and you think, is this all the data that we can capture here? You know, that's the first question. There's just 4 columns. Is this all we can capture? So absolutely not. You can actually go ahead and you can add columns on the fly directly from the system. So as soon as you select which document you want to pull into this report, or any report in the system for that matter, from the front end itself, without the need for any developer, without the need for any technical expertise, you can add columns, remove columns, rearrange the way the report looks as the end user itself, right? So this actually reduces the cost of your maintenance. This reduces the cost of your service provision that the dependencies that you have on your service provider or your system implementer or integrator, right? So we try to give the control back to the users where they can add their own data, their own columns into the system and make that report personalized to them as well. You know? So for example, someone here would want maybe 2-3 more columns in here, but someone there would want maybe 5 columns. You know? So we can add data per person. It's not something that's rolled out universally. You know? So that kind of personalization has also been given in the system here, right? And other than that, there's a bunch of different reports that cover all your financials, including your gross profit margins, your net profit margins, your receivables, payables, aging, and a whole bunch of different things like that. So if you look at any of the reports that you see here, yep. So if you see any of the reports that you see here, let's talk about an accounts receivable, right? So you'll actually notice that in these kind of reports, getting aging buckets and things like that normally is a development task that we do. That's a little slow. I'll come down here. There we go. Right, so you can actually divide all your receivables into different buckets like you probably do already. Only difference is that currently you see maybe 3 buckets. We can give you 5 buckets. We can give you 7 buckets. It doesn't matter, right? Depending on how you want the reporting to happen. So the system will give you these kind of graphics, this kind of analysis, and here you'll actually see, you know, the age, the outstanding amount, does it fall under which bracket or which bucket this particularly falls under. Right, so the main intention of showing you this is to give you the belief that all documents or all reports in the system, whether that's a Excel-based report or whether that's one of these dashboard-based reports, can be customized, can be edited, and can be deployed in rapid speed. Right, so whether you want to do it yourself, whether you want to approach a system implementer, very easy to do that as well. Now, this is one of the few systems which has a feature for pretty much all the different lines of businesses, whether you're in trading, whether you're in manufacturing, whether you're in both, whether you're in project or service-based business, whether you have a product which is billed as a subscription model, whether you are a hospital or a healthcare provider, whether you're a school or an education provider, there's a module for everyone, right? Similarly, one of the only systems in the world to have a built-in retail module as well. So if you have a model where you have over-the-counter kind of sales or retail sales, you can actually position or you can actually implement this point of sales in the system. So this is just a small example of a grocery store where, typically you would come to the counter, you would say, all right, you have 1 rice and some ketchup maybe. Right, and it's as simple as just clicking that, and you can actually track the inventory levels, you can track different pricing rules and all of that in the system as well, with images, right? So whether today maybe you're not into retail, tomorrow you get into retail, we can use the same system for that purpose as well. You need not buy a different POS, right? And this will be completely integrated within the system. So as soon as you punch the point of sale here, it'll automatically create an invoice, it'll automatically create a receipt, and it'll automatically also do the accounting. All while impacting your stock ledger as well. So the levels of stock that you've sold will automatically be reduced, and your inventory will be in line in real time for every transaction that you post into the system, right? So it's just a matter of where you're trying to take your business, into which direction. This one single system will cater for all those kind of requirements, A particular point that most companies have is they try to get a different procurement system where they have a supplier portal. The supplier can come in and they can submit their quotations, and then those quotations once accepted, then they go into another system and create the purchase orders and so on and so forth, right? All that is done away with in this particular system, which gives users access as a supplier portal or as an end user itself, So directly from the system, you can raise your requisitions based on the department. The system can also automatically raise these kind of requisitions based on your stock levels, based on what kind of minimum order quantities you have, minimum stock levels that you have, and who that request should be raised on behalf of, like which department, right? If you want to raise a requisition for purchase, you want to raise a requisition for manufacturing, everything is centralized through this one thing itself, And you can track the status of each of them. So when you come to work in the morning, you can come in here and say, all right, how many pending requisitions do I have? All right, these are all my pending requisitions. Then you go into those requisitions and you have an option of either going through a sourcing cycle where you can release your requirements to a wider set of suppliers, and once you select the supplier, you can go ahead and release your purchase order. Similarly, if you feel that you've already identified the supplier, very simple, go ahead and just click purchase order from here, right? And as soon as you click one of these documents, you'll notice that all the data is automatically populated from the previous document. So the aim is that you enter the data only once, and then that data is carried forwarded throughout the cycle of that transaction, right? Without having multiple data entries, multiple people putting in, looking at sheets and putting things in, etc., right? We try to get rid of all of that, right? So as part of the sourcing cycle, you can actually raise these kind of RFQs or RFPs, depending on what you call it. And based on your requirements, you can choose a bunch of different suppliers that are registered with you. So I can choose these 2 suppliers, for example. This is my requirement. I require these many quantities. Done. I'll go ahead, save, submit that. And directly from the system, my bad. So this email is actually not configured yet. That's why it gave me an error. All right. So let's presume that the emails are correct over there, right? From here itself, I can come and I can just click the send email to supplier button, So all the suppliers that I have registered with me, all of them will get a, basically a print format or a template, which will, for example, look something like, this is just something standard, but any particular format that you send out, could be to your suppliers, could be to your employees, could be to your customers in terms of a sales order, a sales invoice, a salary slip. All of these things can be heavily customized directly from the front end, right? So these kind of print formats, if you want the look and the feel to be something that you're already using, simply come in here and hit the customize button, right? So when you hit the customize button, we can easily create a new format. My bad. Customize format 111. All right, done. So you can see that this is now the print format, easily laid out in a drag and drop kind of a interface, right? So if you want, for example, the salutation or any of the other fields, the terms and conditions, you can simply come into this section, drag and drop it. Now, whatever terms and conditions you have will be printed as part of that print format, right? It's just that simple. If you feel you have more complex requirements where you want colors and all of these kind of things, just come in here, hit the edit properties. You would have to know a bit of coding for this part, but if you have a little knowledge on Python, you can yourself go ahead and develop your own print formats as well, right? Directly from the front end without the need for any developer, without the need for going into the back end at all, right? So part of the procurement module actually covers the entire flow from your requisition, going into an RFQ, releasing a proposal to, or a tender to multiple suppliers. Those suppliers can actually access the system and they can input their own quotations over here as well, right? So you need not actually go ahead and input their own quotations. You can give them limited access. They'll have access to the supplier quotation and only to quote against that RFQ that they have been tagged against, right? So they won't be able to see all the different RFQs that you have, only the particular one that they are involved in, right? So they can come in here and they can actually go ahead and put their own pricing, put the taxes, all of that can be auto defaulted, auto built. And once they've put their quotation, as a user, what is important for you is to compare them. So you can head into the report view. You'll notice that there are different views that we can use, including the Kanban view, which for some reason is very popular in this part of the country, right? So you can have a Kanban view like this to see how many of your quotations are submitted, how many are stopped, how many are cancelled, and so on and so forth in a view like this. If you want to add more statuses, you can do that as well over here, right? So it's very flexible in that sense that the view that you want is the view that you get. You want to see it in a list, you can see it in a list. You want to see it as a report, you can see it as a report, right? And there are some inbuilt reports, for example, the supplier quotation, supplier quotation comparison report. Now I may not have too much data in this particular instance. Sorry. But the point is that when the suppliers come in, they put their quotations. For you as a user, you just come in, have a look at the report, see which price suits you, see whose lead time suits you, the quality of the vendor, etc., etc. And then we go ahead and we release a purchase order for that person, right? Now, once the purchase order is released, you would also track the receipt of the materials inwards. You can do quality checks when you receive the materials. You can pass, fail them as you want. You can track different parameters of the quality against each receipt that you get into the system, right? So let's say you order 10 pieces of something, and out of those 2 pieces turn out to be faulty, or they don't set the quality expectations that you have. You can easily reject them, move them to a different location, and then return them from there as well. So the entire chain is managed in here. Similarly, if your business is heavily relying on subcontracting, right, where you have certain processes which you rely on outside vendors, the entire subcontracting chain is also managed in this system. Whether maybe you give some raw material, and then they bring it back. So a typical use case that we see is in the textile industry, where they do some stitching in-house, and then for the painting or the dyeing of the product, they send it to a subcontractor, and the subcontractor dyes it and puts all the colors, and then he sends it back as a colored fabric, right? So we send a regular fabric, we receive a colored fabric, and boom, the entire cycle is in the system. The entire cycle is in the system. So as part of it, what's important is warehouse or inventory management. And as part of inventory management, there are some pretty nifty or some pretty good tools that you can use. For example, generating item barcodes from the system, or using a barcode reader. So when you receive an item, you can print the barcode from the system, slap it onto the item, and now you can track it throughout the cycle, right? Maybe you have inventory which uses serial numbers or batch numbers, right? So serial numbers are very important, especially in terms of warranty and claims, where you sell a particular, like let's say you're a laptop provider, you sell a laptop serial number 12345 to a customer, you can track the entire journey of when 12345 serial number laptop was purchased, where it was transferred, who it was sold to, and if it was returned, when it was returned, and against which kind of warranty claim, right? So this entire process is built into the system itself. And in terms of warehouse management, there are some pretty great auto reorder features. So you no more have to worry about whether you have enough inventory left, or whether your orders are going to be fulfilled, especially for fast moving items, right? You can simply come in here against an item. For example, this was done for a pharmacy that we recently implemented. So Neosporin is one of the fast moving medicines that they have. So they always wanted to maintain a 100-piece stock in their inventory. So we come in here and we say, all right, if the level goes below 50, you order for another 100. And now the system, based on this, will automatically create a material request to purchase 100 pieces as soon as the inventory goes below 50, right? So automation of these kind of tools is very simplistic in the system. Not as simplistic as you do it yourself, so please do approach us to implement it for you. And once it's implemented, it's a no-brainer, right? You just have to have the masters in place, and the system will continue to do the rest for you, right? In terms of compliance, I'll get a little technical. For those of you who are well versed with accounting or IFRS, the system is IFRS compliant as well in terms of inventory valuation, in terms of lease management, and a couple of other IFRSs that I can't remember right now, right? So these are already done in the system, and the accounting that's generated is also based on that IFRS compliance. Right? So you need not worry whether the accounting being posted is going to be accepted by the auditor or whoever comes up ahead, right? Because that is always going to be compliant with the law. Even in case of taxes, right? We can actually set up rules for withholding taxes, for transactional taxes. Could be GST, could be VAT, could be sales tax. Some of you who have presence in the US would know that the sales tax in the US is a massive nightmare. It works on multiple levels, right? In Mauritius, it's relatively straightforward. So tracking of your input credit and matching it with your output liability is easily done throughout the system, right? So all your purchases are clubbed into different input tax accounts, all your sales are posted into output tax accounts, and the system will give you, at the end of every month, your net tax liability, how much you have to pay to the, I think the MRA, right? So, yeah. So these kind of compliances are built into the system, along with some of the features in stock, at least, that are related to pricing and things. So if you decide to run a promotional scheme, or you have some kind of offer going on, you can track or you can automate those offers in the system using using something called as a pricing rule, right? So we can actually create these promotional schemes. Yeah, we can actually create these promotional schemes, whether it's a one-on-one free, whether it's a discount based on certain levels, that minimum spend 1,000 and then you get 20% off. If you spend more than 5,000, you get 30% off. These kind of things are all inbuilt in here. So once you activate a promotion or once you activate a pricing rule, all the user has to do is just simply input the transaction, and the system will automatically change the pricing and so on and so forth, right? If you follow something like differential pricing, so your pricing locally compared to your pricing internationally for an export market is different, you can track different price lists in the system as well. So you can see that the price list can change based on the geography, it can be changed based on the customer, it can be changed based on the territory, and so on and so forth, right? So this kind of automation is actually very useful. At least for retail, it's very useful because the guys working behind the counters probably don't know the system too much, right? So for them, it's only important to just tell the guy, right, you want to buy this, 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 done. And the system does the pricing and all of that by itself. There's a lot of information being loaded. Any queries or any specific, use case that you think that comes up to your mind as part of your daily operations? We can also, yeah, please.
So I was saying the system looks really tailor-made for a customer with a solid foundation, very solid system. But my question is, do you experience downtimes or bugs on the system? How often? And do you have any backup plan or backup process that you follow for it not to, affect or impact the client's day-to-day routines operations?
So I'll break this question into two parts, right? If you're hosting on Frappe Cloud, we do provide 99.98% uptime is what's there, because the entire Frappe Cloud is based on the AWS server, right? So the backend is completely AWS. So if you trust the services given and the security given by AWS, it's pretty much the same that you'd find on Frappe Cloud, right? So in terms of hosting with Frappe Cloud, yes, we guarantee that the uptime will be, the downtime will be minimal, so as to not disrupt any of your regular processes. If there is an update going on in the system, it doesn't freeze you. You actually get to schedule when you want to do that update. So you control the maintenance time of your system, right? In terms of disaster recovery and backup, we have multiple options. Where does the data from your backup get stored, right? You can store it onto another cloud, or you can store it into a server which you have in your office. Both the options are available. So these kind of backups are also scheduled to run however frequently you want them to run, right? So some customers like it to run on a daily basis, some maybe on an hourly basis. When they have many transactions happening in one day, they maybe want an hourly backup. Right, so the complete backup is done at that frequency, and let's say your system crashes for some XYZ reason, you can just quickly recover all of that data in a single click of a button, right? Hope that answers your question. Okay, so nice to meet you.
My question is your system sustain what we call a dual ledger system? Because dual ledger system is two different systems, because currently, our budgeting system is a cash basis, and we have to prepare our financial statement on a hybrid system. We can see cash and
accrual.
Yeah. And we have another financial statement on a fully accrual basis. So whether the system sustains that dual, what we call ledger system.
Dual ledger system.
Both primary and secondary ledger.
Absolutely. So the sorry, go ahead.
And secondly, you just mentioned IFRS because we, as a public sector, we use another accounting standards called IPSAS, International, what we call Public Sector Accounting Standard. I know it is more or less what we call similar to IFRS because it is dependent on IFRS, but there are certain changes with certain features not in IFRS but in IPSAS. Okay. Whether this is compliant with IPSAS. And my last question is about license cost. I would like to know from you whether there is any license cost, or if there is, whether it is user based, how much it will, at least at the indicative level. Maybe as a last question about, I have not seen any what we call asset module, because at our level, when we are talking about asset module here for government, we are monitoring the whole government asset. Starting from land building, I am telling the whole government asset. Whether your system you have it.
The first question was regarding, all right, so I'll first take the IFRS one. The standard that you mentioned, the IPSAS, right. So currently it's not compliant with that, it's compliant with IFRS, but being a framework, we can actually develop a system where the journals posted are as compliant as per that, right? So although it's not there right now, out of the box, that is something we can develop going ahead specifically for the Mauritian market for the public sector. Now when it comes to tracking two different ledgers, not only two, you can track n number of ledgers using something called as the finance book concept, right? So it's not called as primary and secondary and ledgers like that, it's called finance books. So we can map multiple finance books and the system, for example, will post entries in one finance book as per accrual system of accounting, and we'll post it into another finance book as per the cash concept of accounting, right? So one single purchase invoice can, for example, purchase invoice would not be a transaction that you would do in your cash accounting, right? So there would be no creditor account, right? Because there is no credit feature. There would, so the entry that would basically happen would be expense to cash or stock to cash or asset to cash or bank, whatever it could be, right? So that entry can be posted separately into your cash ledger or into your cash book, and the accrual form of accounting where you do expense to creditors and then when you make the payment, creditor to bank. That kind of dual entry effect can be done in the separate, in the second finance book simultaneously. Right? So for you as a user, you just have to click the submit button and the system will bifurcate both into each ledger. Right? Similarly, it follows a control accounting concept. So when you actually receive, let's say you receive some material, right? It'll first debit your stock and it'll credit a control account. And that control account will then be reversed when you do the invoice. So it'll go stock to control, control to creditor, creditor to bank. That's the entire life cycle for accrual accounting in the system. And that's something similar that's followed by SAP and all of these kind of ERPs. It's called control accounting, right? So that is very well compliant as well. License, all right, so this is a good one because I think I was just speaking to someone outside that ERPNext was built with the motive that today if your organization has 100 employees and tomorrow if they become 1,000 employees, don't come and tell us that you have 1,000 employees, right? Because we will charge you nothing per user license. So that concept does not exist in this particular technology, in this particular framework. We work mostly on a service model where you only pay for the services that we provide, nothing for the software per se, right? So the implementation services, the warranty services, the support services, that's all you would end up paying for. So today, if you have, tomorrow you scale up to 10,000 employees, no problem. The system will still cost you the same. You might just have to increase the server size or the cloud hosting plan that you have, so that can cater for that volume of people. Does that answer your question? Okay. Was there a last one as well? Assets, right. So I'm going to get to that, and it actually does have a very comprehensive asset management module. I just haven't covered it yet, but tracking your complete asset register, from the purchase amount to the WDV amount, automatically generating depreciation. In countries like India, depreciation also works on two modes. One is as per Companies Act, and one is as per the Income Tax Act. So if you have such a situation as well, where Companies Act says depreciate by 20%, Income Tax Act says depreciate by 10%, you can track both simultaneously, right? So similar to what the cash and the accrual system of accounting is, similar to that, we have the depreciation logic as well. So when you actually go ahead and create an asset in the system, right, you will see that you can track the asset, the category, the purchase details of which document that, that asset was received or which it was purchased, what the available for use date is. This is basically the date from where your depreciation starts to calculate, right? And in depreciation itself, I guess I haven't enabled it, 1 second. All right, there we go, right? So in depreciation itself, you can actually see that you can have different controls, and if you have an existing asset, you can actually put the opening accumulated depreciation amount, and based on the WDV, or the written down value, the system will automatically create a complete depreciation schedule like so, right? So these are the different journal entries that the system has posted based on the depreciation rules that we have mapped in here. You know, so what we do normally is we have different asset categories, one for plant machinery, computer equipment, etc., etc. They all have their own depreciation rules. So we pretty much code it into the masters of the system. And as you're creating assets, all you have to do is tag the proper, it's called an asset category, right? So based on the asset category that we assign to this particular asset, the system will calculate the depreciation automatically as well, right? And on the other side, this is a bit on the finance side of assets. On the non-finance side, we actually have complete maintenance tracking as well. So your assets that require scheduled maintenance, maybe some unscheduled maintenance, all of that can be tracked in this as well, right? So this, for example, is an asset. You can come in here and you can put different maintenance tasks. You can put their periodicity. So if you want that maintenance to happen maybe on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis or on a yearly basis, whatever it could be, the system will automatically give you a notification before the due date of that particular maintenance. Right? So it's not only an asset financial system, it's also an asset maintenance system together. Right? And that also pretty much covers what I was going to show you in the asset module as well. So the asset module is particularly useful for those industries that are also in a asset renting or leasing kind of a business, right? Where they have their own assets. For example, you have some earth moving equipment, maybe a JCB or something like that, right? Earth moving equipment, you give that on rent, and when you lease it out, maybe there's some breakdown in that. So you can actually track the maintenance of that particular machine, the team that went to visit, the costs associated to that as well. You know, so the costs that are associated with that asset will automatically be capitalized into the cost of the asset when you pass an asset repair entry in the system. Right, so the asset repair essentially tracks the cost of services, it tracks the cost of consumables that are used to maintain an asset, and also automatically increases the cost or the WDV of that asset. So that's all inbuilt. You don't have to worry about the financial impact of that. Just pass the asset repair. And this is something that's usually done by the staff who's actually on site, right? The one who are doing the repairs. They simply put it, you can use this on your phone. You can put in, all right, I used maybe 5 nuts, 5 bolts, oil, etc., whatever things you use for normal maintenance, and it'll add to the cost automatically, right? So as per IFRS, inventory valuation is done on weighted average. System supports weighted average, supports FIFO, supports LIFO. So the cost of your asset will increase by that particular valuation rate. For those who don't follow, I do apologize. It's a little technical, but if you have any questions, please do let me know.
You made mention of medication in terms of stock management, but I haven't seen anything like expiry dates and management of
Oh yeah, okay. So that very much does exist. I'll show you here, for example. You see the inventory section. So here you can actually see the end of the life. You can see the shelf life of that item as well. So based on the receipt date, or the manufacturing date and the shelf life, the system will actually automatically calculate when the expiry is. And this will happen per batch. for medicines at least. It'll happen per batch.
Do you have any functionality in terms of document management to, like, I have a hard copy invoice, I want to load it on the system?
Absolutely. So let's say your supplier sends you his invoice and you also want to track the soft copy of that invoice for audit purpose. So along with entering the invoice in the system as a form, you'll see on the left side there's an attach file button, right? You click the attach file, you can go ahead and pull any file you want, for example, like so. So I'll just put this image in here. Could be an image, could be a PDF, could be an Excel, could be any format, right? It's irrelevant of the format. Simply upload it over here. If you want the file only to be viewed by you, you can actually set it as private. If you want it to be accessible to your entire organization, then you can set it as a public document, and that's saved. So now anyone who comes into this invoice, they can simply click on that attachment and boom, it'll open that attachment for them, right? You can also go ahead and use the file manager, right? And this is the central document repository for all the documents that have been uploaded in any transaction throughout the system. So you can actually click on these documents. For example, you can assign it to people and you can download it from here simply by clicking the button. So this is I wouldn't say it's the most advanced DMS, but it gets the job done, and it's pretty much all our clients use without OneDrive or any of those things. Yes, sir, please.
Just a quick question from me on that perspective. If we're not hosting on the Fabric cloud, is this functionality one that is secure, or do we need to have additional endpoint protection on our environment to make sure that those documents cannot be reached by people who have wrong intentions?
So I think technically, if you're hosting on your own cloud or on your own server, then it would really depend on what kind of security you've put in your own server. Do you have VPNs? Do you have firewalls? That's why we recommend you come on the Frappe cloud, because all these things are already inbuilt. Encryption is inbuilt, so if you put it in here and it's a private file and someone tries to download it, it'll come with all squiggly lines in the text because that's encrypted like that, right? So
assume that disaster has happened and I need to do recovery or whatever. Those documents are still available in the concept of the storage, right?
Yeah, absolutely available. So that is there as well. Plus, let's say someone by mistake deletes a document, right, that they weren't meant to, or someone with malicious intent has deleted documents just to hide some kind of an audit trail. You can actually go into the deleted document list, and in here you'll get a complete trail of all the documents that were actually deleted. You can click in it and you can see who did that transaction, who deleted it, and you can restore it directly from here as well, right? So that's one of the pretty unique features that I've seen, at least in ERPNext.
And on a Frappe cloud, by default 30 minutes incremental backup, always by default installed on the system.
There you go. So backup 30 minutes by default. You can increase or decrease that time as well if you like.
Can we know which countries are cloud hosted?
Yeah, absolutely. So the data centers is available in many countries, India, Singapore. I think PK or Bopanna can give us a better idea of where our data centers are located around.
Here for Mauritius, the closest is South Africa. So AWS in South Africa. If you want to keep in Europe, you can. So we also have planned to host it locally in Mauritius in the coming months.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're actually actively trying to, get the Mauritian ecosystem into this, so that in terms of security, in terms of licenses and all, anything you're using right now can be replaced with something that's way more flexible, scalable, and also extendable based on how fast your organization grows.
My name is Krishank from the Rise Model Group. So my question is on the availability of mobile app. I think everybody's going on mobile. People walk around and viewing the need mobile. Does the system have an open API infrastructure for third-party integration? And does it have any AI analytics in it or coming forward?
Okay.
Other than this, I'd like to know more about the HR payroll features.
Sure, sure. So we'll get to the HR payroll just in a minute. So to answer your first question, does it have a mobile app? It's mobile browser compliant, right? So when you can, without downloading an app, without taking that storage space in your phone, you can actually just open any browser, Safari, Chrome, Firefox, on your phone, on your tablet, enter this URL up front, and the entire system will modify the page to be mobile compliant, right? So the way the things are set out would be as per your mobile screen, right? So you can pretty much do all the same features just from your mobile browser. Right? HR payroll, we will get to just in a minute. So there's a lot in HR payroll that tracks all the way from your recruitment cycle to employee onboarding, tracking leaves, attendance, expense claims, trainings, performance, and then of course going into the payroll to process salaries, deductions, pay deductions, and so on and so forth, right? APIs, all right. So APIs, of course, like we mentioned, that the system is open in terms of APIs. So you can actually come into the system, and once this conference is over, we'll share the API documentation, if you like, with you. Just give us a heads up. And every field in the system has its own unique API key, right? So any data that we want to push or any data we want to pull can easily be done through something that we call, or I think it's a general term, to be honest. Under this integration section, you will see here something called as webhooks, right? So we use webhooks to do these kind of integrations. Frappe has already developed some connectors for common, common softwares like Google Services, Google Calendar, Google Contacts. For backup, you can have, S3, you can have Dropbox. For payments, you can have PayPal, Razorpay, Stripe. Stripe is very common in the USA. PayPal is common there. Razorpay, Paytm are Indian-based payment gateways. So such kind of connectors are already built, and for the ones that are not built, we can build them for you.
The AI analytics.
AI analytics, all right. So when we say AI, I feel that term has been abused a lot, right? Because now there is no clear distinction as to what actually is AI and when a human steps in. So in terms of analytics, we have complete capabilities of dashboards and So I'll just open this dashboard section. So for example, these are all the different analytics that you can have. It supports different, let me open up another one for you. All right, so it supports many different visualizations, bar graphs, pie graphs, these kind of number cards, right? Yeah, so you can see here, we have different line graphs, we have pie graphs over here. This is what we call a donut graph, right? So these kind of analytics are built out of the box. We can build our own as well, right? In terms of AI, it wouldn't tell you what to do, right? It will give you the information that's already stored in the system. So it'll give you a visualization of the data that is stored in the database, right? But it wouldn't tell you what to do. But on the other hand, we have a new product that's come out called as Insights, right? Now, Frappe Insights is a product where not only the, other than the reporting that comes from the ERP's database, you can actually go ahead and connect any data source, whether it's an Excel file, whether it's a separate database, and you can compile all the data and pull it up over here itself, right? So you can see here, we can choose the data sources. It's being a little slow. We can choose the data sources. We can do a query builder like so. And once that's done, that'll all be reflected in these kind of dashboards.
You have so many applications inside, and one analytic tool sit and get the report. The insight is answered.
Absolutely. So if you do consider Power BI as an AI reporting tool, then this is also an AI reporting tool. Reports as well are of two types. You can either use the drag and drop functionality to create your own reports, or if you have some complex reports that you want to create, where there are some calculations or there are some validations, then you can use something that we call as a query report from the system. So you can just go into this report builder that you see here, right? You can click new report. Now you can use the report builder to tell the system, all right, these are the columns that I want, these are the filters that I want, easy, right? If you have a more complex report to do, come in here, click on script report, and now you would require a bit of coding knowledge, but you can actually write the entire script, you know, to give custom reports. So again, no need to go into the back end. It'll all happen from here as well, you know. So since we are on this topic, there's another thing I wanted to show you, especially in terms of automation and new features, right? So I think almost everyone who spoke before me has mentioned that the system can be, it's a framework, you can build applications on it, you can build whatever features you want on it. How does that actually happen? First things first, we tell the system what is the new document that we want to build, right? So we can create a new document, we can add the different fields and the different field types. So you can see it actually supports every field type possible on planet Earth, right? Other than this list, there's no other kind of field that you would require in that particular form. And once you've developed your form, all we need to do to automate it or make it easier is use something called as a client script, right? So you can actually tag that document again. It could be a new document or it could be a document that is already existing in the system. And you can actually change the way that document functions or change the automation level directly from the front end using client scripts. Again, this does require Python knowledge to code this, but once it's done, simply deploy it from here, and all the features, the automation that you require, if you want data to be automatically calculated, for example, simply put it in this, right? So reports, dashboards, features, everything is customizable using tools which are built on the front end itself. So let me just jump into HR and payroll, as that is one of those modules that get a lot of attention. There we go. All right. So as part of HR, I mentioned that we first start off with the recruitment cycle. And you come in here and you can see that there is a complete list of recruitment related features, right? So you start off with your staffing plan. Could be a yearly staffing plan or a quarterly or a monthly staffing plan, based on which you will go ahead and create various job openings for your organization, right? Now, against each job opening could be for different job titles, for different designations, so on and so forth. Once you've created a job opening, you can tag or you can track different applicants throughout the system in here as well, right? So all the different applicants that have been that have applied, you can track them. You can also track their interviews, right? How the interviews went. So you can see for this particular applicant, Cheyenne, there's been 2 interviews, and these are the expected ratings, and this is the actual rating given. You know, so you can track the complete HR recruitment cycle, and once the applicant has accepted, we can send him a job offer, and once that job offer has been accepted, then, so here you can see this list of all the different job offers we have. You can see it's accepted, it could be rejected, there are multiple different statuses we can track it through. And once that's done, you can actually go ahead and start the employee onboarding cycle, right? So there would be different things in onboarding, like induction programs, creating a user ID, giving maybe the card, the ID card, and so on and so forth. So you can track the entire employee onboarding cycle through here, onboard the employee, and now the employee, once it's registered in the system, we take him through the entire life cycle of his employment with the organization, right? So mapping his skills, and this is particularly useful for project-based companies, right? Specifically like ours. So we map skills based on each based on each employee, whether he's good at project management or he's good at delivery or sales, etc. And when we get a new project, we search through the list of skills that we want, and then we assign it to that particular person. Similarly, you can track his promotions, his transfers, any kind of grievance he may have for HR, those can also be tracked in the system, all the way from onboarding till separation, right? And during this, you would want to track his leaves, right? So we can actually create very flexible leave policies. There is no one policy that fits all. It can be catered for your organization. So once we create these leave policies, the system tracks either through a biometric, or there are multiple tools to track attendance, right? Biometric, there's tools inbuilt in here itself that can help you track whether the employee, when he's checked in, when he's checked out, is he is he present, is he absent, is he working from home, is he on leave, etc., right? And for the employee, all he has to do is ignore all this mess, just come into the leave application and submit his leave application. So if, as per the leave policy, he has those leave available with him, if he has that kind of leave balance, then he can just simply use the system to raise a leave request, which will then go to his leave approver, which is his manager. Right? So the manager will get notifications and such, and you can actually go ahead and approve or reject certain requests from your email itself without going into the system. So the email will give you a body which will have 2 buttons, approve or reject, or whatever different status is, and it can do that. Right? So leave tracking, attendance tracking, for example, So attendance tracking, specifically for construction-based companies, for example, where there's a lot of labor workforce and there's maybe a manager or a supervisor. So it cannot be expected that the worker staff would be logging into the system and putting their attendance. So we have also built an employee attendance tool, right, which is essentially for managers to use. So all the employees which are reporting to that manager will be listed like so. And the manager himself can just say, okay, check all, and maybe Matia and Rahil were not present. So for the rest of them, he can mark them as present on that particular day. And for these 2 people, he can mark them as absent, right? So the flexibility is given in the system where you can have such kind of centralization of attendance tracking and so on and so forth. So once your attendance is tracked, there are other things as well that you'd want to track, like expense claims, especially for your sales team who go to the customer sites. They have different expenses like travel expenses, food expenses, so on and so forth. They can simply come in here, raise expense claims. They can raise an advance as well, so you can give them an advance against which you would do expense claims. And then once the expense claim is accepted, the system will also automatically go ahead and create accounting directly from here as well, right? So this can be loaded onto the cost of your project, on the cost of your product, however you want, right? And finally, we have a tool. We have certain tools for trainings. We have certain tools for performance management. So whenever a new employee joins in, you can use the training module to pretty much give them a induction, maybe a quiz or a test to make sure that they've been onboarded properly before they start their daily operations. Right? Similarly, on the payroll side as well, based on all this attendance and leave, the system goes ahead and creates salary slips. Right now, in order to set up or in order to create, in order to create these different salary slips, so in order to create these different salary slips, it's a very flexible tool which is not specific to any country, right? So we can actually make the compliance, for example, payee compliance and such, through mapping the different components in the system, right? So we create different components of earnings, of deductions, could be anything. Maybe your organization deducts for late attendance, right? So we can create a component for late deduction, and within this you can actually go ahead and map different conditions and formulas based on which this particular component will be calculated, right? So let's say for payee that your basic is above 10,000, then it's 20%, for example. I'm not really sure of the figures, but just as an example. So the condition over here will become your base is more than 10, your base is more than 10,000. If yes, then based on a formula, then it'll be base times 0.2, right? So this is extremely flexible. You can create n number of conditions, n number of formulas, does not matter. So as the laws and regulations change, use the same system, just change the formulas that are being calculated for your salary calculations and such, right? So we've actually done projects for certain customers who have more than 250,000 employees all running their payroll on this one single system, and they belong to different multi-companies, multi-departments, and it's a government organization, the one I'm talking about. So they have directorates and so on and so forth, you know, secretariats. Yes, sir, please. It has, yes, it has. It has. To some extent. So when we say customized, the return format that you send the MRA, that is yet to be developed directly from the system, but the system will give you a complete breakup of how much you owe the MRA, and then you pretty much have to convert it into that format at this point, but we are working on getting those specific formats also generated from the system as well. Right. All right. Cool. So, any other questions? Yes, please.
For recruitment, can external applicants apply online?
Yes, yes they can. So we do that, we enable that using something called web forms. And this web form is essentially a online version of the document that is within the ERP. So this can be an job application form, for example. And what it will do is once the fields are filled, it'll also create a job applicant in our system, right? And then here we can define what data we want to capture from that customer on the front. So he does not even need to log in. He just sees the web form as any other Google form, for example. He simply puts in all the data, he hits submit, and that'll automatically create a record within your ERP system.
The question on the check-in.
Check-in, yep.
Yes. You said biometric. Can you check in using QR codes? Because our staffs move around, and we want them to check in and check out using QR codes, and that too with geofencing.
QR codes is something I think we're yet to explore, but we have had some success with doing QR codes for inventory, not yet for check-in, check-out, but I'm sure that's something we can look into. When it comes to geofencing, for example, the employee or the user has to check in only between this latitude and longitude, right? Those kind of features we've actually developed for the Middle East market as well. Unfortunately, I don't have a demo of that right now because that's on a live client server right now. But maybe after this conference, I can take you through how geofencing works as well. So we create locations within which, if the employee is located, the system will only accept the check-in at that point, right? So in fact, what we've actually done is if you look at this, check-in form, currently it's pretty simplistic, where you have the employee's name, you have the employee's name, you have whether it's an in or an out, right? And you have the time, which is automatically taken either from the biometric machine or manually. What we've also done is over here at the bottom for our Middle East client, we've integrated it with Google Maps and OpenStreetMaps so that it can pinpoint his location. And we've created a master where we define the parameters within which he has to check in. If he does not check in within those parameters, the system will not let him submit this particular form. So I'm happy to show you that once this is done. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely possible. And it's well tested as well, so it works well. All right. So I think a couple of the last things that I wanted to show you was regarding project management and manufacturing or production management, right? So as part of, can I just get a show of hands of how many we have in here who belong to a manufacturing-based industry? Okay, then we won't cover manufacturing then, no problem. All right, so projects is something that's very popular, and when it comes to project, it actually gives you a complete tracking of, you know, when the project was, complete management tracking of what the sales order was against which we created a particular project. Within the project, it follows a work breakdown structure kind of a format where within a single project, we have multiple different tasks that can be assigned to different people based on their skill map and so on and so forth. You can track the progress of this particular project in different methods, like so, right? And you can actually access the Gantt charts and things like that for easier management of your projects. So you can see all the different tasks that we have, like so kickoff meetings, documentation, and so on and so forth. If I want to change the proposed or the expected timelines, I can simply click here. I can move it around. I can change the timelines. I can reduce the timelines if I like, and so on and so forth, right? Within this, we have not only project management, but also project costing and billing tracking as well. So all the purchases that you do, all the sales that you do, they are mapped with each project, which finally gives you a project profitability report, right? So this project costs are based on multiple factors like the costs that are coming in from your purchase invoices, from your expenses, from your timesheets. All these add to the cost of your project. Similarly, on the billing side, you have the billing done via sales invoices, timesheet billing. So every employee who fills in a timesheet for a particular project has a cost price and a billing price as well, right? So based on that, you can easily bill your client based on the hours that your resource has put in. Similarly, if you have a milestone-based billing, whenever your project completion is at that percentage, you can simply come here and you can hit the sales invoice button. So whatever amount is to be recovered at that stage will automatically be created as an invoice. So without getting too much into the project management, in a nutshell, it's pretty much it's like a crossover between Jira and one of the MS projects maybe. It's like a crossover between Jira and MS projects, right? With the flexibility of ERPNext. So, question?
So that we can do exactly each activity, whether it is within the what we call the milestone already stated, because we can monitor the project in terms of resources, cost, and also within timeline. Is that possible?
Absolutely. So the BOQ actually forms part of your sales order. Within the sales order, you have a bill of quantities of all the different line level items that you're going to be providing to your customer. From there, you can actually go ahead and also manage your contracts in the system. So it's got an inbuilt contract management system. So what we do normally is from the CRM cycle, we haven't seen the CRM actually. So from the CRM cycle, you give a quotation, which we call as a BOQ, that gets converted into a sales order, which is a confirmed BOQ. From there, you create a contract where you can track some basic details of the contract, plus you can also go and attach the soft copy of the contract if it's, 300, 400, 100 pages long, right? So you probably couldn't capture 100 pages worth of contract in this, but you can just capture the soft copy. And once that's captured, you would go ahead and create a project against this BOQ. So as you keep implementing tasks, right? As you keep issuing material, the system will keep increasing or changing the progress percentage of that particular project. And let's say the contract says that your project is billable next at, let's say, 50% completion, then out of the box, you will have to go and click the sales invoice button. But we have done these kind of automations for our Middle East market, where based on the percentage billed, the system will automatically create invoices, and based on the BOQ amounts, it'll pull that amount into the sales invoice as well. So that's very common in Middle East, especially for construction, where they have, against the BOQ, as a builder or as a construction company, they raise something called as an IPA, or an interim payment application, and that has to be certified and agreed with the client, which then converts into something called a payment certificate, right? And against that payment certificate, then we would raise an invoice. So although that's not part of the standard system, the same Middle East client for who we did the geofencing, for them, we've done this kind of customization as well, where they track the entire IPA, PC, and billing process through ERPNext. So other than that, just one last bit, I wanted to show you about the e-commerce portal, right? So a lot of you know that you may be using, what's that called? WooCommerce or Shopify or something like that to do your e-commerce portal, right? We actually have a inbuilt website module as well. So you can create e-commerce websites directly from here, set the themes, do settings, create different forms or pages, change the way the sidebars and the top bars and the sidebars look. And based on that, it's integrated with the sales order. I think that was one of the questions the lady earlier asked us, right? How the e-invoice or how the e-commerce integration would work. So if you don't want to integrate, you can build your own e-commerce website directly on ERPNext itself. You can publish it to users, they can come log in, or they can come visit your website, they can purchase things off the website, and that'll automatically be integrated as well. So one of the few systems that has an inbuilt e-commerce feature without having any external integration with Shopify or WooCommerce or any of those kind of tools. Right, so it's very, very flexible in that sense, and we as well, we use this quite a bit. Right? So if you have a login to the Indictrans website, you'll see that you can request for a quotation of our services directly from the website itself, and we get notified on our end. Right, so it's all on the same platform. Lastly, another very helpful tool both for your internal help desk and your customer help desk is the support module. Right? So within the support module, you can actually raise tickets or service requests. This is also important for organizations that give after-sales services and installation services and so on and so forth. So the customer itself can come into the system. They can come in, they can raise an issue ticket or a service request, as it's normally called. And within this, they can tag the issue type, right? Now, based on this issue type, this is something that's predefined. So this could be for internal purpose, or this could be for your customers, right? So your own employees can also raise tickets through this system, plus your customers can come and raise tickets for any kind of servicing, after-sales service, so on and so forth. And once they do that, they write the details of the issue and so on and so forth. Once they do that, based on the issue type, we can actually auto-assign the tickets to different people, right? So if you have a team who looks only into, let's say, asset maintenance after sales, then it would auto-assign to that person. So this is what we call as an auto-assignment. Yeah, auto-assignment rule that you see here. So we can say that, all right, for any issue, right, any issue that is where the issue type is equal to asset, then who it should be assigned to, all the users will come in here. So based on their availability, based on round robin assignment, the system will keep cycling between them. Right? You can even select days that you want the assignment to happen. So maybe Saturday, Sunday, you don't want any assignments or any tickets to be assigned until Monday. So we have that kind of flexibility in the system as well. Right? So this is just a bit about our support or help desk module. And yeah, if you're into something like after-sales services, you would also want to track the maintenance visits of what the, the technician or whoever is going onto the site. He is inspecting the asset or the whatever you've sold, and then he's on the go from his phone. He's creating maintenance visits like so, right? So you can actually add any consumables as well, and you can bill your customer separately for the consumables that have been used as part of that servicing, right? So it could be scheduled, it could be unscheduled, it could be a breakdown. You can track it by different categories. Imagine if the technician goes on site and maybe the job is not complete. So rather than marking it as complete, we can just say, okay, it's partially completed. So against one service request, and there'd be multiple maintenance visits for that customer. So just a quick closing note, and then we can take as many questions as you like. Essentially, what we wanted to show you today is that the system is very secure, comparable to any enterprise level ERP in the market. It's extremely customizable. It's got no license fee per user, so you can scale your business as much as you want without impacting your IT total cost of ownership. It's scalable in a sense that if you decide to diversify into different lines of businesses, your IT backbone need not change, and you have one single system to support all your different needs, right? For example, I think someone mentioned logistics earlier. So you'd notice that there is no logistics module, but we can very easily build the logistics module to track the deliveries, if you're doing local deliveries and things like that. So we can track it directly using this. We've created modules for truck planning. So we have manufacturers who, they send out maybe 10 to 15 trucks on a daily basis. So they wanted to ensure that the trucks are 100% utilized before it leaves the factory. So based on the size of the items and the packaging, the system actually helped them calculate that in this particular truck, how many different sales orders can we fit in before it is 100% utilized, right? So as to reduce their transport costs and things like that. So it's extremely scalable in that way. And we hope you've seen some value of what ERPNext can bring to your organization. My name is Krishank. I'm the Associate Director at Indictrans. Feel free to reach out anytime you have any questions. If you'd like a detailed demo based on your business, based on your use case, we're happy to help you with that as well. All right, guys, thank you. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you soon.